Computational fluid dynamics is used to create this and this and this. It's pretty much using computers to solve how a fluid, like air, moves around a solid body like an airplane. Like, look at how the air is rolling off of this wing here. I think it's pretty cool that a computer is figuring this out. Here's a bit of info on how computational fluid dynamics works. First, let's dissect the name. Computational fluid dynamics. Dynamics here means the study of the motion of bodies, right? Now, fluid dynamics, that means the study of the motion of fluid. And now to get the whole picture, computational fluid dynamics is now the study of the motion of fluid using computers. And that is why we can create these cool simulations using computers. Computational fluid dynamics, abbreviated to be CFD, is used in aerospace applications like finding how the wind moves over the wing of an airplane, or in space applications like finding how the wind or the air will move and heat up a re-entry vehicle coming in from space, bringing astronauts back, right? And CFD is even used in the clean energy industry to figure out how to optimally take energy out of the air in wind turbines, and even these new like clean energy suckers out of the ocean. They bob up and down and take energy out of the tidal waves. Oh yeah, CFD is also used in HVAC. CFD is very useful because it can show us how fluid will move around things that we want to design in the engineering process in a way that is much cheaper than renting out a whole testing facility, creating a prototype, and finding out the aerodynamics in this real world. All right, so now we've talked a lot about CFD. Let's figure out how it works. You're able to use CFD because of this silly, funny, little quirky equation that some dudes found in 1850 called the Navier-Stokes equation. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 components. Holy balls, is this thing complicated. And take a look, it has both spatial and temporal components. So the Navier-Stokes equation describes how fluid moves in time. Pretty much in this equation, density, momentum, shear, Reynolds number, and velocity are all interrelated. That means that they can all affect each other, and yeah. CFD is made possible because the Navier-Stokes equation is a partial differential equation. Now let's dissect that too, right? So a differential equation, look at that first. We know what an equation is. It's just something that describes this world with math, right? Now differential equation, now what is a differential? What is a derivative, which is another way to say differential? There's a little duck back there. If we had enough data, we could model that duck's swimming patterns using computational fluid dynamics. A derivative is a measure of the rate of change of one quantity with respect to another quantity. Now I'm a hungry guy, right? And let's say that throughout one night, over 3 hours, I eat 9 cookies. And we look at what is the rate that Dylan is eating cookies. 9 cookies over 3 hours. That means that the rate of me eating cookies would be 3 cookies per hour. And for fluids, it is the exact same thing, except let's just say that position is changing at a certain rate with respect to time, right? And that is velocity, meters per second, or maybe it's accelerating, velocity per second, right? For me, the derivative is just a measure of how quickly these cookies are being eaten. But for fluids, it can measure how quickly the speed of a fluid is changing or how quickly the pressure is changing. And now let's get into the partial part. Pretty much that just means that in this equation, these things are changing with respect to different variables, such that, let's say that the velocity on this side of the equation changes with respect to time, whereas on this side of the equation changes with respect to space. It's kind of just like having a derivative 2.0. And if it was my case, let's just say that we have an equation that describes how many cookies I eat, but also let's throw in how much I exercise that day. If I exercise more, I'm gonna be more hungry and I'm gonna eat more cookies. So we not only have the rate of cookie consumption relating to time, but we also have the cookie consumption relating to amount of energy expenditure. See how they're related? Now, using this equation that describes how fluid changes in time, we can figure out what this fluid will look like in the future using the Navier-Stokes equation. And that's how CFD is done. That's how we figure out what these simulations, like what's gonna happen in these simulations. For me, if we know that I eat 3 cookies an hour and I have 9 cookies and it's been 2 hours, we know that there will only be 3 cookies left. For the fluid, if we know that it's moving at a certain velocity, in a certain way, in a certain pattern, and we plug in the Navier-Stokes equation, we can figure out how this fluid will evolve in time in the exact same way that we can figure out how many cookies I have in my stomach and how many are left. But unlike myself and cookies, where I'm just one person, fluid has many different states at many different areas. For example, if you look at the ripple in the water, some areas have a little bit of a more velocity or a higher energy because of that ripple than the other areas. In CFD, this is modeled by creating a mesh. A mesh is pretty much saying that we discretize, we cut up this fluid domain into a lot of little tiny areas, and we say that each of these is a state, and we model each of these using the Navier-Stokes equation and figure out how they develop. And then we have them talk to each other and say, hey, I'm gonna be losing fluid. Oh, I'm gonna be gaining fluid. Okay, let's exchange that fluid, right? And finally, this finds the updated state of the fluid. Another important thing to mention here is the Taylor series. In high school and college, I hated the Taylor series. That stuff sucked. But now I think it's one of the most beautiful equations out there, because essentially you can take this Navier-Stokes equation or any equation and write it out as a sum of infinite terms. Now that sounds gross and hard, and it is a little bit more difficult, but there's a certain amount of beauty that goes behind being able to represent one equation in another way perfectly, right? And what's important here is that this Taylor series is what's put into the computer to model the Navier-Stokes equation. But as I said, this Taylor series has an infinite sum. We can't put infinite numbers in a computer. I only have like 8 gigabytes on my laptop. Like, I don't have enough space for that. So that's what we do. We truncate this infinite series and just take the most important terms, like the first 3 or the first 4 or the first 5 most important terms. And that's a very important part of CFD, understanding that while we take these most important terms, when we cut off the rest of this infinite series, that creates an error that is different from the perfect solution of this equation. Now, when we solve this CFD problem, we need to understand how much error is being created and make sure that this error does not shoot into the sky and make our CFD results not physical. We want them to model the real world that we're in right now. These error terms are proportional to both how finely we cut up this fluid mesh. So with smaller mesh grid points, we have less error, and it's also proportional to a thing called a time step, which is pretty much just saying how finally we cut up this solution of the Navier-Stokes equation. This is important because the Navier-Stokes equation is nonlinear. The cookie example that I gave earlier was linear, so it's easy to just figure out how many cookies I ate. But let's say that how many cookies I ate wasn't linear. Let's say that in the first hour I ate very little, and then I got super hungry and I ate 5. And then I got full and I ate, and I stopped eating them. And then I got a little bit more hungry and I ate another one. And then let's just say, I don't know, maybe then I stopped eating them, right? When you have equations like that, with our initial data, where I'm only eating, let's say 0.1 cookies per hour, you can't just predict that because you won't get this large jump, right? But by solving the Navier-Stokes equation in little increments, we can predict better these small changes and follow this physical real-life curve better. So here comes the big predicament of CFD. With smaller mesh points and smaller time steps, we get better results, right? But with smaller mesh points, you need a larger amount of cells to model the same area, and the same thing with time steps. With smaller time steps, you need more time steps to model the same amount of time, right? And more time steps and more cells creates longer simulations. Now, we don't want these simulations to be long. We want to churn them out. We can't just use infinite supercomputer time, because supercomputers take money to maintain, they take money to run, they take money to buy. We don't have infinite of them. Sometimes people have to wait for a week or a month to be able to run on a supercomputer. And that's kind of the current state of CFD. It's a tug and war between getting an accurate simulation with a fine mesh and fine enough time steps, and also getting it done quickly. And this is pretty much where state-of-the-art CFD developments are being made right now. Some people work to make CFD run faster with math, whereas some others work to make CFD run faster with hardware, getting faster GPUs. Some people work to find new versions of the Navier-Stokes equation to solve. And some people just run simulations. They just get to do the fun stuff. Oh yeah, some people work to make better meshes. It's a pretty cool field that a lot of sciencey places are using. I've had the opportunity to talk with some of the professors at my college about this, along with some people at NASA, and they're all pretty big-brained. They're doing some pretty cool developments. My favorite projects that they work on is finding better ways to model the aerodynamics of these re-entry vehicles that are bringing astronauts back from space, or dropping rovers onto other planets, or dropping astronauts onto other planets. There's a lot of heating, a lot of very interesting aerodynamics that go on in that scenario, and yeah, I think it's just a fascinating thing to study. Also, I just gotta say, big shout out to my guys Navier and Stokes. They came up with this equation in the 1800s, and they're making big moves in today's world. And I gotta end it off with a huge shout out to my guys at HVAC. I mean, come on now, you're the one that employs all us CFDers that don't go to NASA or that don't go into research. That's like, I don't even know. Like, come on now, big shout out. And I mean, without you, my toes would be cold. I live in Minnesota, come on now. For real though, I might work at HVAC in my future, so I'm not trying to clown you. I just appreciate how you employ us CFDers who end up not working at NASA or another research place. Okay, please leave a comment if you want CFD part 2. I could go more into the math of CFD, but I also have ideas to kind of talk about the impacts of CFD in the engineering of this world, and flying planes and bringing people back from space and sending rockets. So yeah, just leave a comment if you want any of those. But yeah, stay curious. This was DB, and peace.